Hello, and welcome to our presentation today of the 10 best practices and tips for the CRM Advanced Administrator. I'm Andy Cluck, the Marketing Coordinator here at LedgeView Partners. Some of you may have been with us for the previous video where we did the beginning administrator. So this today is going to go a little bit more into detail for that advanced person. So I'm happy to welcome today Tyler Felton. Tyler's one of our support consultants with LedgeView Partners. And he was also the speaker who delivered this original presentation at our 2015 CRM Conference in Milwaukee, which was at Miller Park this past October. Tyler, thank you for joining us today to talk some best practices for the CRM Advanced Admin with us.
Thank you, Andy. So today we will be talking about the 10 items you see on your screen there. We'll start off with the XRM Toolbox, move into some option sets, and then Cascading Rules, followed up by field mapping, form navigation, calculated fields, real-time workflows, email configuration, utilizing the logs to troubleshoot the Outlook client, and server-side tracing. Again, the first thing we'll talk about here is the XRM Toolbox. The XRM Toolbox is a great free tool that you can download from xrmtoolbox.com. It allows you to do a lot of various admin tasks that you wouldn't otherwise be able to do. And just a quick note here that when you do download it, you'll most often have to unblock the zip file. So you'll download the zip file, right-click on it, and click the unblock so that you can then run the program directly from that folder without any installation. Taking a quick look at this tool, again, it offers many different CRM tools, and just kind of a brief view of the user interface there. You can also add other source, plugins that you can download off other websites on the internet into the plugins folder to give it additional functionality. Okay, and just a quick overview here. Once you run the XRM Toolbox, you can manage connections to several CRM servers if you like, or just your own. So if you just click Manage Connection and then New Connection, you can create a new connection to your CRM server. It does handle CRM Online, CRM On-Premise via IFD. It can save your username and password, and also it can handle multiple organizations within one CRM site if that is something that you have set up. One of the built-in tools for this XRM Toolbox that we like to talk about is the Sitemap Editor. You will find this by scrolling down on the Home tab there once you launch the XRM Toolbox. What this can do for you is modify the navigation in your CRM, otherwise called the sitemap. And this is just kind of an example of once you open that sitemap editor and click to load the sitemap, you'll see a hierarchical navigation or version of your navigation, kind of like a folder structure in a way. And you can see that the area relates to like the module tile, so in this case sales, and then you have the separate groups underneath that. So in this case you have the My Work group, and then underneath that you have the actual individual entities that you're trying to get at. So in this case we have the nav_conts, which relates to the contacts tile on the right. What you can do is very simply move these tiles around or remove them with the Sitemap Editor. All you have to do to move them around actually is just right-click on one of them. In this situation, we're going to right-click on the leads entity and just click Cut. That will remove it under the group that it is currently under. And then all you have to do is right-click in the group where you prefer to have that entity and click Paste. You will now see that the leads is located under the Customers group, and you can click the up and down arrows in this situation to then order them within that group. After that, you can hit Update Sitemap to actually push those changes to your CRM. And this is just an example of the change that we made. We actually took leads from the sales group and moved it over to customers and actually placed it in the middle. So a great little tool there, which these changes otherwise would have to be done by downloading the sitemap solution, opening the customizations XML within that solution, and moving the XML code around. Another tool in the XRM Toolbox that is very handy is the Update User Settings tool. This allows you to update any personal options that users may have for them, which you normally can't do as a system administrator. So once we launch that user settings tool, all you have to do is click the Load Users and Settings button. You'll then get a list of all the users in your system based on the view that you select, so most often enabled users. Then you just select the user that you wish to edit their personal options for, and you'll see the settings on the right that you can change. You make the change and just click Update User Settings, and that'll push that to that person's personal options on the system. The next thing we'll talk about today is option sets. Quick overview on how to get to these option set customizations. You'll want to go to Menu, Settings, and then Customizations. Then you'll want to click Customize a System to open the default solution. Expand Entities, the entity that we want to edit, in this case the account, and then the fields. And then you can open a field to get at the option set fields, or if it's a global option set, you can skip that and just scroll to the option set section in the default solution and click on that. And again, for navigating to local option sets, you would just open the field from underneath the entity, the field section in the entity, and you would have that local option set right there on that field. And global option sets, you just select it from the left without having to drill down any further, and then open the option set in the list on the right. This is just an example of an option set, north, south, east, west options with different values. And just a kind of a tip that we wanted to get in here is we recommend incrementing your values by 20. So as you may know, is that each one of these options is actually signified in your database by the underlying value, not the label. And we'll go into a little bit of why having these incremented by 20 will help in the future for when you add additional options to this option set. Where this may come into play here is just an example of some charts with those option values. If you sort them alphabetically, which is the default value, you'll see that it kind of comes in an east, north, south, west. And then if you sort this chart by ascending value, then you kind of get a west, north, south, east order. And maybe you want to keep those options in a particular order in the future. Here we're going to add more options, so the northwest, southwest, northeast, southeast. And now that we left those spaces in between the values, we can actually put values in between them rather than having to build up on top of them. So here we did 7 for northwest, 14 for southwest, 47 for northeast, and 54 for southeast, so that we could keep them in the order desired. You can see now the options are sorted in the way we desired them to be, because we left the room in between the values. The next thing I'd like to talk about here is cascading rules. So cascading rules are something that are often overlooked in most new CRM organizations. And to kind of give you an overview here, entities in CRM have relationships defined to other entities in CRM. And those relationships themselves are where these cascading rules are actually located. What these rules do is they define how the child records are affected by changes to the parent records. So you'll have that like parent-child relationship, and those changes may cascade down to those children. In the example here is when you reassign an account, it will also reassign all child activities, and that's kind of the how it acts by default out of the box. Where that may be a little weird is even if those activities were completed by another user, so they're marked complete, they're closed and inactive, even in that situation you reassign the account, it will still reassign those closed activities, and we may not want that. So to take a look at these cascading rules, we'll navigate them to the menu, Settings, Customizations, Customize the System, drill down to the entity where we want to look for the relationship in these rules. And in this situation, we're going to look at one-to-N relationships on the account or one-to-many. And we'll double-click the relationship we want to open here, which is the account-to-phone call relationship. Now, one thing to note to kind of figure out where you want to find this relationship is one-to-many is kind of like, so you're going to have one account and it can have many phone calls to it. You're not going to have one phone call that has many accounts assigned to it. So kind of think that through in your head, and you'll be able to find which section your relationship will be under that you're looking for. So we'll simply double-click this relationship to open it up. And the cascading rules are located at the bottom of the relationship settings between account and phone call here. So we'll zoom in on those there. And you'll want to change the type of behavior from parental to configurable cascading to allow you to change that behavior that happens on those child records. So just to kind of go through the different options you have. So you have a few different relationship behaviors, actions that we can change here. One is when a record is assigned, what will happen to the child records. So when it's assigned to a new user, it will reassign the child records, or when a parent record is shared, it will share the child record in this relationship. And conversely, when it is unshared, it will unshare that record. Reparent is sort of like sharing. It's when a child record is giving a new parent, the owner of the new parent record is given access rights to the child. And then delete and merge can never be changed, and that's just because child records must always have a parent. You don't want those records ever becoming orphaned in a system like this. Now, the different behaviors that you can assign to each one of these is that you can have cascade all, which means the action that is done will happen to all the child records. So in the example for assign, if it was set to cascade all child records will also get reassigned. Cascade active means that it will only happen to active child records, so non-completed activities in our example. Or user-owned means it will only happen to child records owned by the current owner. And then none means it will just, that will not cascade at all down to any of the child records in this relationship. So in this situation, we are going to update the assign behavior to just cascade active in the account to phone call relationship. We will then want to save that relationship's changes and publish those changes. And then if we do a test by reassigning the account, as in the example here, you'll see that now those completed phone calls no longer change because we changed the behavior to only reassign child records that are active. Now, something to keep in mind with these cascading rules as they can become a little complex is that they are between every relationship. So the one we looked at was the account to just phone call activities related directly to that account. However, you can have the parental to child account to contact relationship with cascading rules, and then also the cascading rules from the contact to the phone call activity. So in situations like that, you're going to kind of have a waterfall effect where if the account is reassigned, it's going to reassign all the contacts, and then it's going to reassign any activities to the contact as well. So you actually have to configure those rules in between each relationship there. So in between the account and contact would be one place you have to configure it, and then you also would want to change it between the contact and phone call activity. Next thing we'll go into here is some field mapping. To access these settings, we'll want to go into Menu, Settings, Customizations. And then customize the system, the entity, and the relationship again. So in this situation, again, we're going to drill into entities, account, and one-to-many relationships on the account. This time we're going to use that parental relationship between account and contact. So we'll just simply double-click to open that. And then on the left of this relationship column, you'll have a navigation that will have a mapping section. So you just simply click on that mapping section. And to create a new field mapping between account and contact, you just simply have to click the New button. And again, to be aware that this only works when a contact is created from an account form. So anytime you want data from a field on the account to flow to the contact form when that contact is created from the account, that's when you would want to create this. So we just create New. And then we would select the field on the left here that is in the source field for the account, and where we want that data to also copy over or flow into on the contact when it is created from that account. In this situation, whenever we create a contact from an account, we do want the fax number from the account to flow into the address 1 fax field on the contact. So we select those fields and then click OK. The next thing we'll want to talk about is form navigation. Again, we'll want to go into Menu, Settings, Customizations. Customize the system, drill down into the entity, and select the Forms section for that entity. So in this case, we'll want to select Account and then Forms. And then you'll have a list of forms that shows up in the list on the right, and you want to, in this case, we're going to open the main form for the account. And now you'll see here this form editor, you'll see that the navigation is on the left that we'll be discussing here. There's a couple ways you can get to this navigation, which is double-clicking in the left column section, which will make it active, or clicking the navigation button in the header at the top. Now what this navigation is the related tiles that will show up on a record when you click the drop-down caret for related records when you're on it. So in this case, you can see that you have like the related activities, social profiles, contacts, and so forth on this record that will show up. And you can actually change what shows up there, and that may be important for a couple reasons that we'll discuss here. What these are actually listing here are relationships to those other records. So because they're in the related record field, obviously it has to have that relationship, but there may sometimes be something there that you have a related item, but it's not showing up in that navigation. You'll want to come into the form editor and do that. So in this case, there was a campaigns relationship not showing up there, so you could click and drag it from the right, which shows a list of available relationships when you're in this view, and drag it into the marketing section so that when you're on the record, you can easily see those related campaigns. Once you drag it over there, of course, you will need to save and publish that form. Next, you can also remove relationships that you just never make or are no longer needed. You simply can highlight the relationship and hit the delete key on your keyboard, or click to highlight it and click the remove button in the header to also clean up that related records list. Now you can also double click these relationships to rename them or the groups that they are in, but unfortunately you're not able to create any new groups. Another important thing here though is if you double click the relationships, you can look at the name tab that comes up, and on this name tab you can see the actual database name for that relationship. And that may be important if you have a couple relationships to the same entity and you need to figure out which relationship will actually be important for you to show in that navigation. And here's an example of why you may need to edit it with those multiple relationships. So in this case, you see that on the record, you're noticing two navigation entries for contacts. And on the form navigation editor, you also see both those contacts. Next thing we'll want to talk about here is calculated fields. Now, calculated fields are a great new feature, and they're brand new in Microsoft Dynamics CRM 2015 only. They can do a number of different calculations, numerical calculations, date calculations, and even different types of text formatting and concatenation. The example we'll use is a fairly simple numerical one here today, where we'll create a cost field here that is a currency data type. We'll have a discount percentage field underneath that, which is in the whole number for convenience use for users. That is a range from 0 to 10. And we want to create that third calculated field that takes that discount that's entered in discount percentage off the cost and calculates it for you automatically. Now to access it, you'll want to go to Menu, Settings, Customizations. Open Customize the System to get at the default solution. And then again, drill down into the Entity in the Field section. Once you're in the fields, and in this case we are in the Field section for Account, we'll want to click the New button on the right list. And it's also important to note that you cannot change already created fields into calculated fields. It has to be set at the time of creation. So in the new field, we'll give it a unique display name, in this case total cost. We'll choose the data type, which again is important here as currency, and then we'll choose the field type as calculated. At that point, we'll hit Save to save the new field. And then we can click the Edit button next to the calculated field type, which then gets locked down after we saved it. This is where we'll create our calculation for that field and build it. So you'll want to start searching for cost in the field that we want to make this calculation in the drop-down, and you'll see that it finds the new _cost field. Something to note, you can put conditions on these calculations so that they run only under certain conditions there. After we have the new cost field, we want to subtract the discount of the cost field from itself to get the total. So really we want to take the cost and then times it by the discount field, and then have it subtracted from the original cost to get our new total there. So what we'll do is we'll put a minus sign in there and then a parenthesis. So it will oftentimes put these order of operations in there for you automatically, but I do recommend you putting them in manually because they don't always get it right automatically. So we'll take the new cost minus and then a parenthesis, and then we find the cost field again, and then we simply multiply that with an asterisk symbol. And then that should be 0.01 there. Sorry about that typo. And then we multiply that again by the discount percentage field. So we start typing discount to find the discount percentage in the drop-down list. And then we have our full calculation. We just hit the check mark to save that action. And then we can save and close this calculation, and then we can save and close the actual field itself as well. Next, we would want to go into the forms section and open the main form for the account and drag this calculated field into the tab or section that we like. Here we're going to drag it right under cost and discount percentage and save and close that form. At this point, we can publish all the customizations now in the default solution. And as always, we need to refresh the whole CRM web page or tab to get those changes to take effect. So here's just an example of what we get when we tested that. So if we had $100 and put a 10% discount in there, we'd get $90, or $5,000 with a 10% discount, we get $4,500. You'll also notice the lock next to this calculated field. Now, calculated fields are always read-only because they will only be filled out by whatever you have in your calculation that you set. Okay, the next thing we want to talk about here is real-time workflows. Now, real-time workflows are very, very handy, but there are some major differences to be aware of with regards to background workflows, which is usually kind of the default type of workflow. Real-time workflows will always run in a single process, so they have their own process defined for them, whereas background workflows, every time they're triggered, that is sent to the asynchronous process to process for it. Real-time workflows can run as the user who triggers the workflow with an organization scope, whereas the background workflows have to run as the owner of the workflow when using the organization scope. Real-time workflows require more system resources, whereas background workflows are less resource intensive on your system. So, unless you absolutely need a real-time workflow, it is recommended to stick with background workflows. But we do have a couple examples today of what a couple usage scenarios for real-time workflows here and how to create them. So an example here is just kind of a Click Dimensions email, and for those who are unaware, Click Dimensions is a marketing module for Dynamics CRM. And what this workflow will do here is whenever this field which is called lead total score, is greater than equal to a number of 50, and then as long as another field underneath that is not check marked or not equal to yes, and a lead owner condition there, then it will send an email. And then at the end, if it does do that, it'll mark that check mark as yes, so that the next time this is triggered as becoming greater than 50, it won't continually send an email. Now, sometimes there may be conditions that make this workflow trigger many times, in less than a minute, 20 times or so. If you are using background workflows, each one of those triggers will send it off to the asynchronous process to do, and it may actually complete the email multiple times before one of them marks the object as yes and prevents the further emails. So this is a perfect time where, since real-time workflows work in their own process, it'll run through it once before it starts it again, and then the second time it'll always see that it's checked and it won't continue, and from then on out it won't get triggered as many times. You can access these in the menu, Settings, and Processes. And you can just click a new process as you would with any workflow. And remember to activate when you're done. And in the new process pop-up window, you'll give it a name, category, the record type you want it to run on. And then the run this workflow in the background recommended is what you will want to uncheck to make this as an actual real-time workflow. And then you can hit OK. Now here's just a configuration of a real-time workflow. It's very similar to the background workflow. You do get a couple more options, such as you can start it before or after certain triggers, You can specify exactly when it's going to trigger, and then you can also execute it as either the owner or the user who made the changes. A couple of nice settings to have there. The next thing here we'll talk about is email configuration. We'll go through this really quickly, but we just kind of wanted to bring this up because it's a very common scenario where email configuration comes up as a question or problem, so I hope this helps you out. So you can get at these settings in the main menu settings, email configuration settings in CRM. And CRM itself has no way to send an email out, so it needs something in between to send that email for it. There's a few options, which is under process email using here, and then again we'll get into the server profile, incoming mail and outgoing mail, and appointments, contacts, and tasks for synchronization. But you can have the Outlook client set up to grab the email out of CRM and send it for that user. The negative there is that the Outlook client always has to be connected, or it'll have to wait until the Outlook client gets connected the next times. So if an email gets triggered overnight, it won't get sent till the morning. And also that the Outlook client has to be configured and working properly. Another option would be the CRM email router. Now this is a lightweight Windows service that runs on a server or desktop somewhere. And what it can do is it can always be on. It can reach out to CRM at any time. It can handle heavier loads of email, and then it'll grab the email from CRM and then push it to your email server. Now the negative there is there is some configuration and possibly maintenance with password profiles and such that it needs to connect to both CRM and your email server. And then the third option is server-side synchronization, which at this time only works if you have both email and CRM in the same Office 365 portal, or if you have CRM and Exchange on-premise on servers that you host. Microsoft is looking at making this work with some hybrid deployments in the future, though. So in the first option, you want to use process email either using server-side sync if you have that ability, or the CRM email router or Outlook client. And then if the server profile is really only necessary if you're going to be using server-side synchronization. If you are both online in the same Office portal, you will find an Exchange Online server profile that is built for you. On-premise, you'll have to build that profile. Incoming email used for tracking. Most often you will want this set to the CRM for Outlook client, as it gives you the most flexibility in what you want to track and when. It can be also set to server-side sync or none. Server-side sync has some automated rules that it will track based on, but obviously a lot less flexible since you cannot manually select items you want to track. Outgoing email is the option you want the user to use for sending email from CRM to the outside. So again, you have the CRM for Outlook or the server-side sync or email router options. Appointments, contacts, and tasks, a similar thing. You can have Outlook sync those for you, a little more flexibility, or you can have server-side sync do that for you. And then a couple options we actually recommend unchecking are the process emails for only approved users and process emails only for approved queues. This is just another step of maintenance for you to remember in the future, that you have to go into the user mailbox record and approve their email address, whereas you can uncheck it here and kind of skip that step in the future. Now all these settings are for users going forward. They're the default settings, but changing them here will not actually change them on the user record. So just keep that in mind. You do also have the ability now in the newest update to CRM. Update 1 is to configure folder level tracking. This must be used with server-side synchronization though. What this new feature lets you do is actually select a folder in your mailbox and relate that to a record in CRM, and any emails you put in that folder will automatically track or be set regarding that record that you choose. You also have these correlation settings, which are used by the automated tracking settings that you set either by server-side sync or the Outlook client to figure out what it should track. The tracking token places this unique code that increments in your subject line. Now, external and internal, everybody else will be able to see this in the subject line. And then if somebody does edit the subject line back to you, then it would lose it, so it's not a perfect feature. And then you also have smart matching, which uses some expressions to dictate subjects that are similar, as well as senders and the to and from field and matching. And it's also not a perfect system. So if you are going to use any sort of automated rules, we do recommend using them together. But if you're not going to use any sort of automated tracking and you opt for the Outlook client fully manual, then you can turn these both off. And then two important settings, allowing messages from unresolved email recipients to be sent. This can be important if you want CRM to be able to generate or send emails to just email addresses that it doesn't have a record for. And then also the maximum file size for attachments here, which affects what you can attach and regard into CRM, large attachments, or also attachments that you put on the notes section on any record, actually. Now, my default, this is set to 5 megabytes, but it can be increased up to 32 megabytes in this section. The next thing we want to talk about here is utilizing some logs to troubleshoot the Outlook client. So you can turn these logs on by going to All Programs on your computer, Microsoft Dynamics CRM, and then the version, and then the Diagnostics program. Once you open this, you can click on the Advanced Troubleshooting tab, put a check mark in Tracing to turn it on. You can select your different tracing level, which is in the newer versions. If you have an older version like 2013, you may not see that. We do recommend to select error, but you are able to turn it to verbose, and then you click Save. At this point, you would want to open Outlook, reproduce any errors that you are having with the CRM for Outlook client, and then turn this off again right away. The trace log location is located in the user's folder, profile folder under App Data, Local, Microsoft, MS CRM Traces. The log you're most interested in is the log that has the computer name in the document. The CRM add-in hyphen with the current date is rarely relevant and often has a lot of useless information in it. In this situation, we just simply reproduced an error or turned logging on, reproduced the error, turned logging off, and took a look at the error real quick. Here, you often want to search for error details, and that'll kind of jump you to the right where you need to be in the error log. And here we see that the principal user is missing a security privilege, and in this case, the read mailbox security privilege, and that's why they're getting that error. Sometimes, these security errors and the Outlook client won't be able to show you, any error. It may just not do anything or give you an unrelated error, and it really could be a security issue like this. And lastly, talk about server-side tracing today for on-premise CRM users. Again, this is only available for CRM on-premise. It is enabled and disabled via the registry or PowerShell, which is the recommended way now. In CRM 2015, the registry keys for tracing, if you go that route, must be added manually, and there's a KB article that you can search to find out how to do that. Now, when server-side tracing is on, it can impact server performance, and the logs can be very large, so disk space when running, and so only enable that when you need to do troubleshooting, and then disable it right afterwards. The default trace directory is the C, Program Files, Microsoft Dynamics CRM Trace. And most of the errors of interest to you will be in the W3WP trace files. Now here are the PowerShell commands for enabling this. So you want to first set the trace settings, and then enable the tracing, and then save the trace settings, recreate the error, and disable them. Next, once you open those trace files, you often want to search for the level : error to find any relevant entries. And you want to use the timestamps on the left side to match the activity that you are trying to reproduce in CRM with your logs. Inspect the entries before and after any errors you may find as well for related activities or possible clues as to what may actually be causing the error. And you can look for stack trace activity, which usually has the most detailed error. And that'll be all for today, and just a quick recap of the things we went over: the XRM Toolbox, option sets, cascading rules, field mapping, form navigation, calculated fields, real-time workflows, some email configuration, utilizing logs to troubleshoot the Outlook client, and server-side tracing. And here are just some resources that we wanted to put up for CRM administrators that may be of help. Our own LedgeView Partners blog, the Microsoft Dynamics CRM team blog, Microsoft Dynamics CRM 2015 white papers and technical documentation for getting a real good low-level look at things, the CRM updates, release dates, build numbers blog, the CRM in the Field blog, which has a lot of great articles, the CRM support blog and the CRM support forums are a great place to find answers to any resolutions you may have. And also, if you didn't know, all CRMs have a built-in CRM diagnostic page where you can put in your server URL /tools/diagnostics/diag.aspx, and it'll give you, some information about the bandwidth and the latency going on between you and your CRM server, and some great testings for troubleshooting there. I appreciate it. I hope that this was helpful to you, and I hope everyone has a great day. Thanks.